And welcome back. Thank you for staying with us. Tonight on Monday Special, due to public demand, we return to our conversation on how to talk to your children about sex, with special focus on the boy child. Though males too are victims of sexual misinformation and even in the worst case, violence, they are disproportionately seen as the aggressors and are also perceived to bear fewer consequences than girls, who can end up forced out of school due to pregnancy and could even die during childbirth. So tonight, amongst other things, we're asking, how do we raise responsible sons in this age of sexual liberation, and how do you take the first steps as a parent in having that conversation with your sons? We want to remind you that our conversation tonight may not be suitable for young children. I'll introduce my guests, beginning from the very far right. You met her last week. Dr. Charity Waithima is back with us. She is a lecturer at African Nazarene University and is a clinical psychologist. Next to her is Ian Kenyanito. He's a 20-year-old student and will be giving us his experience. And to my left is Flavor Mangula. He's a life and leadership coach. And you're all welcome to the program. The last time we had this conversation, we largely focused on the girl child, Daktari. Tonight we're looking at boys. Is the conversation with our sons significantly different from that with our daughters, and what would you say the differences are?
Okay, thank you, Anne. I think the conversation will be a little bit different with our boys, given that culturally we always think, especially many parents, will always think that girls are the ones that are supposed to be told more about their sexuality and about how to handle themselves than boys. However, boys or men, they are more sexual than females. And therefore, all the more that we should focus as parents, as society, on educating boys and males about sexuality and about sex. So the difference in their brain, the difference between the chemical makeup of the body, because the males have a sex hormone that we call testosterone. Their brain is largely different, and you'll find that, especially because the brain is the main sex organ, the way the structure of the brain is, for the male, the part that controls sexual arousal and feelings is a little bit bigger than for the female. And therefore, I would say that we need to focus on speaking to our boys a little bit more different and probably a little bit more aggressive than the females.
Okay, your perspective?
Thanks, Anne. I tend to agree a lot with Dr. Personally, I have an 18-year-old son and a 16-year-old daughter. And we have had discussions about sex and sexuality with both. And I must say that I take more time with my son than with my daughter. My daughter tends to have it flowing more. She's more of a researcher. She has this open talks with some of her friends than boys. We tend to find that boys are more experimental with themselves. That's why even masturbation is very high with boys than with girls. So and boys are also very visual. I run a program called Zinduka for young boys, and one of the topics that I really dwell and delve in deeply is sexuality and sex, and how to deal with that pressure, especially from a peer perspective. Yeah,
you've talked about your daughter being, more open, and it is the nature of girls, isn't it, to just be able to be more conversational about this sort of things. Do you find that because perhaps boys do not open up in the same way, that it is a harder conversation? And how would you approach it without, alienating them? That perhaps it's something they're not comfortable with. They're like, Dad, please don't. How would you go about it?
So the thing is that, first of all, understanding your son. You've got to understand his temperament and the kind of personality profile that he carries. And then from then, you can now know how to bring out the topic. Don't make it a taboo kind of subject. Make it a friendly talk. Have a sense of humor on your sleeve, so that it's not something that is so serious. It's not a physics or chemistry kind of discussion. It is an easy topic to discuss, and you actually ask him questions to see what answers he has or what he holds as far as sex and sexuality is concerned, and then you clarify those and give advice based on where he has reached as far as that topic is concerned.
All right, and just like last week, we're going to run through information in terms of what is age appropriate when, and Dr. will help us with that. But Ian, let me come to you. So you're 20 years old. Where did you first find out about sex, and what was the information that you had?
First, when I was growing up, I have to mention this. My parents never used to tell me the truth about really. I used to ask them, Mom, how did I come to being me? And then they tell me so much stories that really don't add up.
What did they used to say?
You were bought from the supermarket.
Were you an Uchumi or Nakuma baby?
Like Tuskies.
Tuskies, okay. Yes. Okay.
I don't know.
Yeah.
So I tend to believe that that happens to many of my peers. Like your parent doesn't tell you exactly where you, and that's the first thing that you really need to know. I don't know whether I'm wrong. You can.
No,
So-
it's your perspective.
Yes,
Go ahead.
Yeah, so I think it's necessary for our parents to be open with us. And then again about the boy child, I feel as being a boy, my parents don't share with me as much as they do with my sister.
Okay.
So I tend to think it's a matter of putting the girl child, because they think now the girl child can get pregnant. There's so many issues, like whatever happens, it's the girl child who is eventually going to carry the problem.
All right. So, but where did you get your information from? It wasn't from your parents?
No.
Do you remember?
In class 5, I guess. In class 5, from the textbooks.
Okay.
Because, you know, we used to get these drawings, about reproduction. So that's now when my mind began opening up, I think.
Okay. And so, to your mind, what do you think about sex? Is it a good thing, a bad thing, an awkward thing that
Sex
has to
is
do
not.
with retail? The supermarket? What is it? to you?
It's not a bad thing, as long as it's done with the right people at the right time.
And what does that mean for you? What does
For
right
me,
people?
the right people at the right time means two people who are married, and the right time after marriage, definitely.
Okay. So would I be correct to assume then that you're a virgin?
Yes.
And how do you feel about that?
It's I treasure it because I tend to believe most of my peers are not.
Okay.
Most of them, from the discussions, we discuss these things definitely. So most of them are not. So most of my age mates.
Okay.
Yeah. So I tend to believe I treasure it.
Okay, okay, and we'll talk about why you've made that decision right now and what it's like for you day to day. But before we get to age-specific information, Doctor, tell us, to what extent does the way, you know, in which men, our fathers, husbands, understand the concept of sex affect what they raise their sons to be, and what are we predisposed to culturally?
Okay, culturally you find that most of the men feel that being sexual is being macho. And therefore they will orient the boys that way. That a boy who is 18 and has conquered a girl, that is, I mean, that's the man. And culturally that will be encouraged vis-a-vis what he has said. That a parent will tend to protect a girl more than the boy. And therefore our fathers, or the fathers, will tend to orient the boy like he is the sexual being, while the girl is supposed to be in control. And like he said, boys are more, or males are more experimental, but girls are more, you know, of feeling. And therefore you will find that the boys will experiment, men are more secretive, and therefore they will do it before you know. And because, like, if there was a pregnancy for the man, it's not going to be there. So they tend to lean towards that. And just think about even things like bridal showers. When a young man and a young woman want to get married, you'll find that most parents, especially ladies, will concentrate on talking to the girl while nobody is talking to the boy. And so there will be these bridal showers during what they call itara. The girl will really be talked to, while the boy, everybody assumes they know. Again, for the fathers, they are not so expressive. And they are shy. Most of our fathers, because of how they were raised, they didn't have fathers who were open. They had the fathers with the supermarket concept of where babies come from, or don't disturb me. And therefore, they have not been oriented in talking openly about sex and sexuality to their sons. And therefore, the sons will either learn experimentally from their peers, they will read somewhere like the way he read in a book, or they will go into the internet and decide to check on, what is this?
Right.
Yes.
Flavor, I mean, there is that kind of bravado that she's referred to that is associated with men's sexual expression. Is that a positive thing? Is that a Kenyan thing? And where do you go into, you know, a responsible conversation about sex with your child coming from that perspective, where, you know, you have a bit of a King Kong attitude, beat your chest about it, and you know, roar, and but you know, where does the substantial information then come in that kind of context where it's, you know, this big brouhaha?
So first of all, I'd like to congratulate Ian for such an amazing stand you have. It's a very rare thing to get a young man at this age who's proud to be, you know, sexually inactive and keeping yourself. That's very, very, very good and commendable indeed. Now, to answer your question, and one of the most taboo areas, so to speak, in today's society is that what just Dr. said, that men don't want to talk about sex. And when they do, it's in a bravado space where it's like a conquering thing. I mean, and that's how we grew up. You know, the number, if you slept with 16 women, you are a star. You're the star of the room. And for the ladies, it's the other way around. The less men you slept with, the better of a girl you would be. Society is very imbalanced in that space. They're very silent on the male recklessness in terms of sexuality, but very hard on the woman. And yet they don't arm the men enough to tell them about their consequences of this sex. Because you see, like Ian said, I mean, the person who carries the consequence of any sexual encounter, if it was to be pregnancy, would be the woman, would be the girl. The boy walks scot-free, and probably the girl will raise the kid alone.
Child, right.
Yeah, and this is where men need to be brought to the table and be made to understand the responsibilities and the consequences of having reckless sexual encounters, and with several women at that. What I teach in my classes and in my mentoring sessions is taking responsibility, knowing that the responsibility that you have with sex, you should be able to carry it at that point that you're having that encounter. If you are not able to, then deter yourself. And do not learn about sexuality from experimental escapades. Most sexual encounters, as discussed with young people, are normally very hyped. It's so hyped up that the pressure is so intense, and that's why I'm very proud of this young man, because it's so hyped up that if you do not have sex, then you're not normal, so to speak. And we need to come to a space where it is actually very normal, and that it's abnormal if you're having so many sexual partners, because you're predisposed to disease and responsibilities that come at that young age that you cannot be able to handle. So the talk and the indictment is upon the men in society. Take your responsibility, take up your stand. Stop spending your times in bars, in gyms, in stuff like that. Take time, come home, have these conversations with our sons. Let them be responsible. Let them be men who women can run into their arms for protection and not running away from them because they're aggressing.
I just want to return to your decision to wait, Ian, and you've heard about, the bravado that comes with it. It's cool, you've conquered, etc. That's what we often hear. What do you think about that kind of talk?
I tend to think, first of all, it's wrong. Because where are we getting this information from? Mostly it's from what we see from, let me not say, older men in the society. It's what we see from them. And now we tend to emulate them because we see them walking to nightclubs with these ladies. And you understand what I'm saying?
Yes.
Yeah. So
but I don't mind you adding a little bit more so that everybody understands what you're saying.
I tend to believe it's a matter of we are getting it from them. Like we look at our the older men in society, for example, our uncles. My
You think
father
they've
is
let
very
you down?
straight. My father is very straight personally, so he has shown me like this is what you're supposed to do. But now seeing it from other older men in society, because we see them, it now makes us think that now being sexually active at a very young age is really nice. It's cool. Let me use that word.
And so how are you able to cope with then maybe not being cool in that sense?
Personally, I tend to believe it's because of the things that I am engaging in. It's made me so busy. And I think that's the first thing that we need to get all our peers into. Make them so busy such that they don't have time to think about that.
Daktari, let me pick it up now very quickly with age-appropriate information, and I don't want us to focus on the early years because we pretty much covered that in our topic last week. But let's talk about the pre-teens and teens area where our sons are getting more aware of themselves, their bodies are beginning to function differently. What is it that we should be saying at this point?
I think as we are saying, and we said last week, we need to talk to the preteens about especially the secondary sexual development, the characteristics that you develop as they get into puberty and beyond puberty. Because with the differences that will come into their bodies, they will notice that they are different. And that is the time, especially for the male, they will feel they need to go out there and conquer. And if they are not well taught from when they are preteens, in their tween years, as they get into their teen years, then they will have it all wrong. Their sexual organs will be developing, they will be feeling different, and they'll be looking different. And if this is not well handled, so that they know, yeah, this is normal. Now the secretion of the sex hormones is more intensified as I get to puberty, and I'm likely to get more sexually aroused. My sexual organs are going to become bigger and look now like for a male. And this, if they are getting it from the peers, sometimes they get the wrong thing.
Right.
And like Ian has said, sometimes they are made to think that they are fools when they don't understand. Sometimes I've had young preteens being told, you know, if you don't have sex with girls, your scrotum is going to swell up. You know, and because this is an innocent boy who has never been exposed to any sex education, they fear. And immediately they get a chance of having a girl, they will just get in and have a sexual relationship.
Flavor, very quickly, so what exactly did you say to your son at that age, if you would help the audience at home find the words?
Thanks, Anne. I mean, you just have to be as blunt as possible. It is about the toying around of this discussion that is causing a lot of experimentation with the young boys. I like what Ian said, that older men have let the younger men down. You see, we cannot preach one thing and practice another. These young people do not do what we tell them to do. They actually see what we do and do what we are doing. So it is important to actually go in directly and say, this is what you're developing, and this is how you're developing, and this is how you're going to go wrong, and this is how you're going to get it right. So it's very direct. Don't toy around it.